started. Thank you, Casey, for coming. Nice to see a fresh face over here. This is officially Hacker Refactor's Hangout Space and our bite session, which he's here from the CDC.
Yeah, the other CDC, yeah.
The Career Development Center to talk to us about how we can network more or better or, I don't know. Well, I'm excited because
awesome.
I always need help with this. So let's give Jeremy a nice, healthy welcome.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, my name is Jeremy Hansen. I'm a career advisor with the Career Development Center, the other CDC. And I am a last-minute fill-in for Wendy Worthington. So, yeah, it's good to be here. And, yeah, networking, it's one of those things that it does take practice. It doesn't always come easy for a lot of people, and with good reason. It can be very intimidating, and it can be a little tricky just to kind of figure out, how to, sell yourself and kind of promote what you're about and your brand. So, really, this is like going to be hopefully some good prep for the event that's going to be happening next week. I see the flyers out already, and so it looks like everybody's doing a good job promoting it. But I just want to talk a little bit about that before we get into everything. So if you haven't already, there's a QR code that you can scan to register. I think we've got like 26 already. So if you haven't and want to go, definitely take advantage of that. And I'll just mention that this is not like a job fair. Some of these at this event next week, some of the employers may be hiring, but they may not be. But there's still a lot of advantages to going to something like this. For one, it's just a chance to meet people within the industry and also have them get to know you, but also get to know them and ask questions that you may be having and start to, build your network as you are going through your time here at OSU Cascades. It's also just a tremendous opportunity. It's not every day or really every term that you're going to get some industry leaders into an event like this. So yeah, definitely take advantage of it. And networking is one of those things that you might plant a seed one day and it grows later down the road. So if you don't come away with your dream job right away, that's normal. But you just never know where that a conversation can take you later on. So also, this is going to be a very structured event. So part of the expectations are to practice networking, to show that professionalism and make a good impression, but also follow along with the event structure. Talking with Jill, she mentioned that there's going to be groups that after every 5 minutes just kind of cycle through and get to talk to people. So definitely make that great impression for that and enjoy it as well. Enjoy the process with all this. I also just want to highlight this clothing connection every Wednesday and Friday. That's just a chance to get some free clothing that is either new or slightly used. It's free. You can get, I think, up to 4 or 5 pieces of clothing, and they're tremendous over there. It's on the COC campus. So maybe an event like this, you want to dress up a little bit. Maybe you have an interview later on. This is a great option to think about and, remember for future use. And one last slide before I really get into things is I got a Google Drive folder with like 6 documents, 2 of which I have here, and I can pass those out to you when we get there. But there's other just kind of like networking tips, dressing for success, different types of questions that you can think about. So that should be a good resource for next week or just going forward as well. All right, so I want to take this time just to kind of get a feel from you. What are some of your thoughts, concerns, and challenges for networking? When you think of networking, what do you, what makes you nervous or what do you want help with? What is it about networking? Any thoughts? Yeah.
I mean, it was just like, how do you get one started? You start from square one.
Yeah. Starting from square one. And that initial start can kind of feel awkward. But we'll talk about like developing an elevator pitch, so you have something to say. And then, I think a short answer to that is really just practice makes perfect too. Once you get some of those details of an elevator pitch and all of that, and just the more you do, the more comfortable you'll get with that. Yeah, great one. Any other thoughts or concerns, or what do you think about when you think of networking? Maybe just one more.
I think that sometimes it feels challenging to figure out how you want to present yourself, right? Because it's very contextual and related to, in some ways, like how they're presenting themselves and how you want them to perceive you. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to kind of do that context switch.
Yeah, that's a good thought. We'll talk about, building your brand, but, what exactly does that mean? And I appreciate what you're saying about, this idea is it might be different in different contexts, and reading the room and knowing what's appropriate for each situation. Yeah, very good. Do you have a thought too?
Some of the questions keep, when these events happen, keep going to what we've done, but I don't really have much industry experience. It's mostly just around the college.
Okay.
What would be like a good thing to talk about?
Yeah, definitely lean on what you do have and what you have done in the past, even if it's in a collegiate context or experience. But it's also an opportunity to describe what you hope to do, and that could also segue into some conversations, asking them questions about what they do, and then maybe getting a sense of how you might fit in there. Also, I think a good thing to do is just before an event like this, take inventory of your strengths and your skills. So, just highlighting what you're good at, even if you don't feel like you have a lot of experience in the industry, knowing what you're good at. So we, at the Career Center, we offer a lot of assessments and career exploration to help students kind of figure that part out as well. Yeah, good. Let me transition to another question for all of you. What is the purpose of networking? Why do we network?
You kind of want to know people, just obviously that, but often you'll know people who aren't hiring right now, and if you can introduce yourself well enough, they might circle around at some point when they actually do have a role that's available.
Yeah, great. You're building your network, and kind of like I mentioned before, it's like maybe nothing materializes right away, but by making a good impression, you kind of plant that seed that, maybe future down the road that something opens up. It's definitely happened to me, and then also, people that I know where something, later opens up as well. How about one more thought? Why do we network?
I think about, sometimes I discover things about companies that I might not know from just perusing their website or LinkedIn, and you get the chance to ask real people that work there what they think of their team, or if they like their job, or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, I mean, when you're there with people, there's going to be so much more opportunity than just what you see on their social media or what's on their website, and also a chance to see how you fit in. A lot of times networking is not just seeing what they have to offer, but getting a sense of what you can bring to them and how you fit. It's a two-way thing as well. Great. So, a lot of this, I think you kind of touched on this as well, is yes, we think of networking as a way to get a job, but a lot of it is understanding the industry. It's an opportunity to talk to people who are doing work that you may find interesting. It's an opportunity to get advice from others as well. Then the job piece comes in, the internship piece comes in, and there could be opportunities for you to gain experience through them. It's a way to create a great support network as well. Just the more people you know. I mean, there's a lot of statistics floating out there about how important networking is. I kind of question some of them. But I will say this. A lot of hirings are made available by who you know. So just expanding your network is really important as well. And it's a way to kind of build that rapport, gain the trust as you go through. And I always tell people, you just never know where a conversation is going to take you. One of my favorite examples of this is we had a student, I think he was an OP student, and he randomly got on a chairlift with someone at Mount Bachelor, didn't know the person. By the end of that chairlift, he had an internship. Not to say that that's like going to be the most common way to do it, but you never know. You never know where a conversation will take you. You never know what piece of information you will get that will help you later down the road.
I just want to hit on that because you said that might not be the most common, but I've had that exact same experience.
That's awesome.
Chairlift who offered me an internship.
Yeah.
No, I already have something. It's more like you meet a lot of people on the mountain, and they're very. As soon as someone sees you're also into skiing, they're very friendly.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like, when I say you never know where a conversation can take you, a lot of times conversations just start by like how you can connect with someone. And that could just lead into some really, interesting ways and avenues, even if it's just getting more information and learning more. But sometimes it turns into something more substantial. So, yeah. Very good. So the next question I want to bring to you is how can we network? What are some ways to network? Obviously, we got a networking event next week, so those are going to be great opportunities. OSU Cascades offers a lot of those. But what are some other ways?
Extracurricular activities, things like Hacker Refactor here, right? We're building relationships with each other like that. I mean, I don't think that anyone in this room is able to give anyone else in this room a job, but like, maybe 10 years from now, you'll be on a team, they'll meet someone, maybe you'll remember, like, this person worked really well with me on this project or whatever. Maybe I could reach out to them. Other thing I can imagine is like, for example, there's like a JavaScript meetup that happens often here in Bend, and everyone, all the industry professionals that like to do that socially will, like, that's a really good, like, group of people to integrate with and get to know. So I think that there are a lot of different ways to do networking. Yeah,
I like the way you're thinking on that because it's, we think of networking as trying to meet industry professionals, but all of you are now have connections with each other. And so, as you said, maybe 10 years down the road, that means something, or maybe someone is given an opportunity, hey, it's not quite right for me, but I have this friend who really fits what you're looking for. So even stuff like that, is great. Yeah, awesome. I love it. Anything else?
Yeah, just to piggyback kind of what Nathan's talking about, speaking of Hacker, I've had several internship opportunities because of faculty here, and I know the reason why I got them is because of Hacker and my involvement there. And the other thing, sorry, I'm preaching Hacker because I need you all to join so that I can graduate. But we like to send people to conferences, and 100% of the people that have graduated from Hacker who have gone to a conference with like the pre-knowledge, the forethought of like, I'm going here to get connected to people and get a job, every single one of them have gotten a job offer because it's such a huge opportunity to meet recruiters. So
Yeah.
conferences are
Yeah, totally. So, conferences is a good way. And, again, you probably heard the cliche, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Just building that network is good. Conferences are a great way to do that, for sure. To build off that a little bit, at OSU Cascades, we've got networking events, we've got career fairs. I mentioned taking stock of your skills. Also take stock of who you know, and maybe it's a friend of a friend, a family friend. You never know who might have something where you can benefit from or mutually benefit from. And then of course you have all the different social media networks, whether it's LinkedIn, Handshake, alumni. Don't forget about alumni. Even if you're doing like search for people on LinkedIn. Alumni are more prone to help people who went to their school. I think every time we meet someone from the school that we went to, that kind of builds a little bit of excitement, and that could be a great way to gather some more connections as well. And then community organizations, there's a lot out there. A couple things I'll just kind of add to this is some of the smartest and most well-connected people I know are the most curious. So yeah, really just invite your curiosity to come out. Ask those questions. Come in prepared with questions as well. And then for those of us who may be just a little uncomfortable or haven't had a lot of experience with getting out there and networking, how can you practice that? Well, one thing I would recommend is just step outside of your comfort zone, because that's what a lot of networking is maybe a little bit of uncomfort zone. And so, there's ways to practice that. Maybe it's someone you see in the elevator every day going in your building, and it's just a way of, hey, I noticed, maybe it's just starting up a conversation. That wasn't so bad. And then you kind of build off that, and that can kind of snowball. So, yeah, definitely practice stepping outside your comfort zone. So really want to focus on kind of the before, the during, and the after of an event like the event that's coming up next week. So let me hear from you. What are some things that you can do before the event to help you prepare?
Look at company websites, kind of investigate what their message is and what their priorities are.
Yeah, the research. Research can take in a lot of different forms. A great start is company websites. Maybe on there that highlights a something noteworthy that they did recently. Maybe it was in the news. That could be a little nugget to bring up in a conversation. Yeah, good. What else might be a good way to prepare?
Kind of bouncing off of that, looking at the people who may be there, seeing if you can kind of do some little stalking and I'm really into this, and especially if they say on their LinkedIn that they're very passionate about a certain cause, you can kind of be like, I also really care about coding for animals.
Yeah.
Tie
It still
things
technically
in.
qualifies as research.
It
even
is
stalking,
research,
yeah.
it's just a little creepy, but you gotta do it.
Some legalized stalking.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
Finding the people that are going to be out there. And then, we had a question that was, not sure what to say. Well, maybe finding a little bit of history that resonates with you is something that you can bring up as that icebreaker to get going. Anything else that we could do to prepare for an event that's coming up like next week?
Think about how you want to present yourself. Think about the things that you've done in the past. Figure out what kind of a potential relationship you want to present yourself to be. You can say something like, I'm a student that's been taking these classes and I'm interested in doing these kind of things. Or kind of think about what it is that you have that is valuable that you want to make sure you're presenting or talking about.
Yeah, I love it. So I kind of mentioned earlier about taking stock in your skills, but also just kind of think about the way that you want to present yourself. One thing that I hated all the Zoom being online when COVID hit, but the one benefit I got out of seeing myself on that screen all the time is how I look to others. And there were times when I'm like, people might think maybe I'm bored or upset. So just having that visual feedback of how I am, body language, was helpful. And then, taking stock of your dress, all that kind of stuff. So we got a nice little list here of things that you can think about going in, and even about what you want to say. We'll talk about creating an elevator pitch a little bit later. Maybe it's dress, maybe it's getting that resume dialed in, so you're really comfortable handing it out. Preparing some talking points, having some good questions. We talked about the research. I'm going to add this one in again, being curious. Just go in with a curious mindset of wanting to learn more. Being willing to engage, just kind of getting ready for that. And also, you're not trying to be someone that you're not, right? You know, you want to represent yourself authentically, but definitely still be yourself, because that's going to come out no matter what. So, yeah, you know, what makes you you, and hopefully that will help people relax as well. But in addition to that, you know, our authentic self when we're chilling out with our friends is probably a little bit different than our authentic self when we're in a professional networking event. So still maintaining that aura of professionalism as well. Speaking of the research aspect, what are some things that we can do to research? Well, yeah, we talked about company pages. Specifically, you might look at their mission statement or different values. When you do a cover letter, what's the first paragraph in a cover letter supposed to do? Part of it is aligning your values with what they do. So even kind of having that in mind before you go. Finding out really like all that they do and seeing how you maybe match with that. This really applies for CES students, just kind of what technology they may use and how you fit into there. Understanding, you know, what they're looking for in an employee, what kind of careers they offer and potential jobs coming up. And definitely still lean on, I think you talked about the value of faculty. Lean on faculty. A lot of our faculty here at OSU Cascades are really well connected. So they could be a resource in just asking, oh, I saw someone is, this person's going to be here. I know you worked with them in the past. Maybe you can give me some tips on, you know, what I should know about them and how to approach them. So that could be something to look out for as well. Yeah, good. The other thing too, when you're doing your research, and this one can scare students, but informational interviews. That's that career exploration. I know I co-teach a class where we have to do, the students have to do informational interviews. And it's the one thing that they just dread. They don't want to do it. They kind of drag their feet in getting it started. And then their comments at the end are like, oh, I'm so glad you made us do that. That was so helpful. So just like a one-on-one sit down, you know, over a cup of coffee or whatever can go a long way. And it's really just showing that you're doing that extra step to find out who they are. People like talking about themselves, you know, and people like sharing their experiences, and especially if it's a faculty member or someone in the community, they often are very interested in helping others do that too. So take advantage for sure. Yeah.
How do you suggest going about that? I mean, are you like asking like your parents' friends? Are you searching things on LinkedIn and kind of like cold calling people?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about like cold calling can always be tricky. I think, you know, from my own personal experience, I like to have, you know, them somewhat aware of me, you know, before just like going in. But there's definitely opportunity through LinkedIn just to kind of reach out to someone that you may not know, and then kind of have like a little pitch. Maybe this next slide. Do you want to add to that, Anna?
Yeah, I've had a lot of luck with doing things kind of like that, where it's like you add someone on LinkedIn and you're like, hi, like you like give it like a day or two after you're added and you're like, hi, like my name's Anna, I'm a student at OSU Cascades and I noticed you do this. I'm really interested in doing something like that at some point. Do you mind telling me more about your professional journey? Or like about your journey, or like how you got to where you are and what kind of steps you took, and then people are always really excited to tell you about things they did. So
I like how what you just said is almost verbatim what's on the slide, but you did it like well turned around.
yeah, I just had a feeling. But yeah, and usually like they'll offer like to take you out to coffee or something. It's like you just harass them a little bit, and they're like, oh, okay, a child. But yeah, just like messaging and being like, hey, you sound really interesting. Will you tell me more? And usually they will.
I think in LinkedIn there's like a limit when you reach out to like how many characters you get. So you got to be brief and concise, so kind of having that. But touching on, you know, maybe something that resonates with you, maybe there's a mutual connection. And again, I think focusing on alumni is a good way to kind of think about it too. But yeah, I mean, this is a great example. Anna definitely touched on a lot of these things, but it's basically combining an elevator pitch, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a minute, with just this ask. And don't be offended if they don't get back to you. This is maybe in a little outdated term, but I like the idea of a shotgun approach. You send out a lot of BBs. Not all of them are going to hit, but some of them do, and you don't need them all to hit. And so just the more you get out there, the more opportunity, the more chances that you have. So yeah, I'll just quickly read this. My name is not Sarah, by the way. Hi, my name is Sarah, and I'm a current student at OSU Cascades in the Natural Resources program. I'm very interested in what you do and potentially working for an organization like the Forest Service in the future. I'm wondering if you would be willing to meet with me for 30 minutes or so to answer a few questions about your career path and company, and to share any advice that you might have for me as I'm looking to pursue a career in the natural resources industry. I also want to highlight career paths. Sometimes we have an idea, especially when we're students in school, about what the best career path is. But in talking with people, we see that people go in very interesting ways. So I always encourage students to research people on LinkedIn, see what their career paths are. So let's say there's a company that you're really interested in. Go and try to find people that work there, see what their career paths, and then you can maybe model a little bit of that as you go forward or get some ideas. It's not always the way you think. You know, the job market is really skills currency. It's not necessarily what you major in, it's what skills or experience you have. So we often find a roundabout ways of getting to where we're at. And so that could be an opportunity to ask people how they got where they were. All right, so in going to an informational interview session or in going to a networking event, what would be some questions that we may ask? And I'm actually going to pass these out, or maybe if someone wouldn't mind handing these out. Thanks, Anna. There's some chance to maybe brainstorm some questions here, but then also we'll get into some of the elevator pitch later. But we can just do it together. What are some questions that you might ask at a networking event like next week? And I just might move ahead just for the sake of time. But here's some, and maybe after showing you some examples, you'll think of some other ones. But maybe what personal qualities or qualifications are a good fit for someone working in this field? What education or training is required or beneficial? What is a typical day like? What do you like most about your job? What do you like the least? What kind of stress might one expect in this job? What advice would you give to someone? What would you change about your job or career? What motivated you to work in this field? And then who would you suggest I talk to next? Can you add to that? Would there be any questions that you might add to that?
What kind of, I don't know, something about, my brain's not formed this question properly, but it's about like where you started in the company. Is this the job that you like entered in with, or are there career paths internally, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, again, that's getting at that career path conversation. You know, you might be interested in what kind of opportunities are there to move up. That could maybe that's where you might be going with that a little bit too. Yeah. Did you have one? Yeah.
Yeah, at networking events, like make sure you have a conversation with them, but be like, just out of like curiosity, when you guys tend to like open up job postings for the year, especially for new grads, because I know that a lot of them vary, and if you're showing interest in it, especially early on, I think they tend to like that specifically, kind of in this CS sector, I don't know, in all of them, but usually if you're like, so when the jobs happen, they'll like give you who to reach out to, and they'll give you a good idea, which is nice.
Yeah, that's really helpful just to get an idea of, what things might be coming along. And yeah, good. Yeah.
One question, I remember my friend saying she asked, and I was kind of like, ooh, that's like kind of spicy. Or I didn't think that you could ask that sort of thing. And because it just seems like so wholesome. It was like, what sort of mentorships does your company offer to you to like help support your career path? Or like, do you feel supported by your manager? And I thought both of those were like, I don't know, seemed like big asks, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always like, sometimes there's questions that may seem spicy, to use your word, but there's always like ways to, kind of soften it, I guess. And I like kind of what you mentioned about, what kind of support systems or mentorship opportunities you have in there. And that kind of reflects a desire for professional development and improvement. And so I think that can also reflect well on you, the person who's asking that question. Yeah.
I just was looking at some of the companies that will actually be there, and a lot of them are kind of business to business stuff. So you might ask people about what their favorite project for a client has been and what they're, interested in. That's more specific than just we kind of build software.
Yeah.
For other people.
And that's where that research can come in, of doing that legwork beforehand. So you can get into like specifics of what they're doing. And that's kind of showing an interest in, the details, the nitty gritty of what the job and what the projects are. I think all of these are really good. And again, I'll just kind of highlight this point again of being curious and, wanting to learn more and develop and improve. So with that said, let's move on to just how we might build our elevator speech. The elevator speech is basically describing yourself and the time it might take to ride up in an elevator. I've heard someone kind of differentiate that between a tell me about yourself, which might be a little bit more in depth, but not much. We're talking 30 to 60 seconds here. So on that handout that you got, I hope we had enough copies for everybody. But it kind of gives you a formula. But this is where you can make it yours. This is where you can, add your own. This formula is a nice place to start, but it's, be yourself. Going back to that whole point, this is where you can, add your own self into it. But starting with, hello, my name is, and I'm completing a computer science degree at Oregon State University. I'm interested in a career learning more about the whatever field or industry. I have been involved in, here's a chance to list some of the things that you did. I know we had a question earlier about, what if you don't have a lot of industry experience? Well, you can definitely describe what you have been doing at your college, and definitely tell what skills you're good at, what your strengths are. Knowing your strengths are so important too. You can go on and say, I've also worked as, maybe you have a little experience in the industry or with certain jobs. And describe, maybe where your interests or passions lie, what you want to pursue a little bit more. And then, I always like to end it with a question. Could you tell me a little bit more about, and so it's showcasing that curiosity in there. But lots of opportunity to make it yourself. And, if it does seem too formulaic, then you probably maybe aren't sounding like yourself. So definitely, take some time to practice this a little bit. And, even if it is just kind of bouncing ideas off each other with a friend too, that could be like a way to, address this. So we already kind of had an example in that informational interview request. But let's take a look we got 3 more. So, for example, hello, I am Sophia Alanis. I will be receiving my bachelor's degree in hospitality and tourism, and I have interned at several hotels, including the Hyatt Regency and the Holiday Inn. I also have sales experience and fundraising chair of my fraternity. I'm currently seeking a sales position in the hotel industry. I might just add to this that, if you describe what you're looking for a career, Again, as I mentioned, this might be an event where they may or may not have opportunities for hiring right away. So maybe also framing it of what you can learn from them at that event. So it's not just like you're going in there with the only reason to find a job. No, you're going in there, make connections to learn, really, is what we're doing. So yeah, kind of adding that piece of, if we're talking about the next week's event, is what can you learn from these people at the event? Here's another one. Hello, my name is Marquis Smith. I am currently a senior at Cal State Bernardino, majoring in criminal justice. I spent last semester as an intern with the Wake County Police Department's Juvenile Delinquency Program. I've discovered a passion for working with youth, and I'm looking for a position where I can utilize my criminal justice background to promote positive social change. And again, maybe an opportunity to ask about more information about a career path in that way. Last one. My name is Cody Coyote, and I'm a student at Cal State Bernardino working on my bachelor's in computer science. I recently took a course on programming skills and learned the C language and how it differed from Java. I've also taken a course on operating systems to learn about managing storage and files. I'm passionate about my community, and I volunteer with my local middle school tutoring children in STEM-related classes. I hope to find an internship with a local nonprofit where I can utilize my coding skills. So yeah, different examples here. Not super long. Keep it brief, keep it concise. Practice that concise formula, and really just emphasize, what you can learn from them. Questions there? Okay. So let's talk a little bit about during the event. So hopefully we feel pretty good about what we can do to prepare before the event, but also think about what we can do while the event is happening. So of course, we want to make that great impression, and we want to be professional while we're doing that. Part of the reason, part of the way to show that professionalism, especially for next week's event, is to follow the event format. Not every networking event is going to have this specific format where you're in groups, and then after 5 minutes you change. So, I wouldn't try to be a rebel and, deviate from that. Go with the flow. People are, also to think about, people are watching you. It's not like Big Brother or anything, but, there's going to be people out there that, see how you are approaching this, and that's going to leave an impression on them. Try to talk to a lot of people. Even if you don't think that they have a ton to help you with, or you're not interested in, like I said before, you never know where a conversation is going to take you. I've had conversations where I was surprised. I initially didn't think I was going to take much out from that, but after having that, my mind was definitely changed, and there was just something else out there. And I'll just kind of add this too, is when, oftentimes when we're thinking about how we fit into a potential job, or if we're analyzing our experience with what the job has and we feel like maybe it doesn't match, also think about transferable skills, not just the hard skills, but the transferable skills that any job position can use. And that's also a way to, that's a way to maybe begin a conversation or highlight in a conversation as well. Ask those questions, and then don't forget to get contact information as well, especially because you might want to follow up with them after the event. And then you can also offer your resume and your contact information as well. What do you guys think? Is there anything, this is not an exhaustive list. Is there anything else that you might add to this, or maybe any other tips that you think could be a good thing to think about while you're at the event?
I think that's super useful, and I wasn't familiar with this at first, but when you download the LinkedIn app, there's a really easy way to share your profile with a little scan, kind of like Venmo. And so it's super easy to connect with people at events that maybe they're not necessarily a recruiter, but you're like, oh, I want to stay connected with this person in a very non-professional pushy way.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so having LinkedIn on your phone, like logged in, ready to go, it has been really useful for me.
Yeah, that's great. And that's like an easy feature, you know, to have and to share. And another tool in the toolbox of trying to connect with these people. Yeah, cool. I like that. Anything else that you might add, or a tip that has worked for you in the past? What might you do? We'll transition then. What might you do after the event?
Follow up? Probably.
Yeah, definitely want to follow up. And how might we do that? Well, presumably, you've talked to a lot of different people. You've gotten some different contacts. So yeah, maybe just taking some time to organize those contacts. I know some people have done like great Excel sheets. And it may sound like more legwork, but I think in the end, you know, that organization pays off and will save you time in the end. So organizing the contacts, I guess this goes during as well as after, but just making sure those you got the right information and it's the right, you know, it's really embarrassing when you reach out to someone like, oh, I enjoyed this conversation, but it wasn't the person you had that conversation with. So yeah, just those little details. Honest mistake, but you know, it could maybe seem like a bigger thing when the person receives it with the wrong information in there. Typically 48 hours. Typically it's in writing, but you know, there's a lot of different you know, ways. If you know that you see this person, you know, regularly, or you have the opportunity, that could be and it could be a way to follow up. But I think even if you do follow up in person, that might be a little bit more informal. It's always worth, you know, sending out a nice little email as well. And definitely personalize it. So highlight something that you did talk about. A lot of this stuff is just about setting yourself apart. So, you know, if you have a personal touch, something specific, you know, those specific details are just a lot easier for people to grasp, hold on to, remember, allowing you to set yourself apart from all the other people that were there as well. Yeah, I kind of mentioned that, emphasize a specific part of the conversation that you had. Connect through social media. You know, that's just another reminder for them. A lot of this stuff is just about making it easier for them to know who you are. So, you know, follow up on LinkedIn, for example, might be good. And then the last thing I have here is, yeah, what do you bring to the table? You know, like I said before, networking is not just what they can give to you. It's often what you can also provide for them. So how can you make yourself valuable? I mean, if you get hired, they're hiring you for what you bring, for your skills and experience. So make that explicit and let them know what you know, you can help out with. So yeah. So I know we're about time, and I have you know, just I got one more slide. I want to plug an event coming up in addition to the networking event. But also, do you guys have any questions over everything? I know it's kind of like a crash course whirlwind. 45 minutes is not a ton of time. But hopefully there was something in here that we could all take away from. But any questions?
Kind of outside this specific event, I know we host a lot of like virtual networking career fairs, and a lot of jobs are, you know, remote these days. But it seems like there's been kind of a downturn in those hirings about referrals just off of LinkedIn. Do you have any advice for virtual career fairs or connecting with people who aren't necessarily physically in Bend?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this stuff obviously is going to apply no matter if it's in person or virtual. But I also think, you know, kind of, I mentioned earlier, just the Zoom thing, you know, how you present yourself. You know, it's really easy to kind of be disconnected. So, you know, just trying to show that through body language that you know, that there's that interest in there, having good questions, all that kind of stuff. Specifically with virtual events, I think it's more important to kind of establish some kind of connecting point with those because you have less to work with. And so, if we're talking about setting yourself apart, those little connections and as part of that conversation, I guess what I'm trying to say is just, you might have to elevate that conversation and that charm a little bit more because you're working with less. And, hopefully that will help set you apart. Yeah, I don't know if that helps, but that's kind of what came to mind. Did you have anything more specific that you were looking for?
I don't know, it's just more like finding, I don't know, the virtual career fairs are a lot of recruiters, but you don't necessarily, when you're talking to a recruiter, they aren't always there for that charm, they aren't always there for that connection, it's more like straight to skills.
Yeah. And with that in mind, I think being prepared really counts. So really having a good feel for what your skills and strengths are and how to explain that. And one thing that I work with a lot of students on with resumes and cover letters that is often lacking, probably the number one piece of advice I will say is show, don't tell. Anybody can say that they're good at communication, but that doesn't mean as much if you don't have something to showcase that within, something tangible to grasp in. So I think with a virtual thing, that becomes even more important to really have an understanding of your strengths and skill set and specific examples and details to follow that up. Paint that mental picture for them. Yeah. Yeah, please.
It sounds like you have a lot of online adventures with the, have you ever followed up with recruiters afterwards on LinkedIn?
Not specifically recruiters, but I have followed up with people who are not in an organization but not directly, hiring a lot on LinkedIn, and they'll often, point me to the recruiter.
Okay, cool, yeah.
My experience with that is the more, like he was saying, the more interested you are with what they're doing, the more responses you get and the more excited people are. So that really works out when you actually care about what they're specifically doing in an organization.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to that curiosity of, that shows a level of care as well. And I'll just mention too, I don't have this in the slides or anything, but don't be afraid to make mistakes through this. And I'm just going to be real with everybody. You're going to feel defeated at times. And you're going to feel like it may not have been worthwhile, maybe with one person or not. That's just an opportunity to get better at it. And also, it's hard not to, but, not taking that personally. The mistakes that you make early on are only going to help you when you go forward. And, mistakes are often, or just that feeling of defeat, if we don't run away from it, they can be our best teachers. So sometimes it's, like I said, it's easy to take it personally, but just having that kind of fortitude to kind of push through and keep at it. Because it'll get there and it will get easier and you're going to find that one. And sometimes it only takes one. It only takes one. So, yeah. Anything else? All right, well, let me just highlight a couple of things. I wanted to talk briefly about this Bioscience Connect event that's happening today. So maybe you feel like, got some new networking skills you want to try out. Now, you might not think it applies to you, but a lot of these people are hiring computer science and engineering majors. So it could be a great opportunity. So that's happening today, quick turnaround. It starts at 6 over at the Ray Hall Atrium. The first hour is going to be an industry panel. And that part, again, that's going to be more of kind of bioscience that may not resonate or apply to you as much. But definitely the last hour will be that networking with students. So, a chance to talk to them. And they are looking for more than just, biology, all those kinds of majors. So there's some opportunity there. And then I just want to offer, you guys can, if you have a resume that you feel comfortable with, I got some nice paper. I'm happy to stay a little bit late, and we can get some of those printed off for you if you want to take advantage of that. But with that, I will say thank you for being here. I hope it was helpful, and yeah, definitely practice some of this. And in the week leading up to it, like I said, step outside your comfort zone and just try to build that comfort with what all this entails, because it's not always easy. So thank you.
Thank you.